Her girls' night joke hit hard. What she said will haunt you forever. The laughter had barely died down when the lights flickered ominously in the cozy little bar. The air was thick with the scent of spilled drinks and cheap perfume, a setting ready for mischief. One simple joke from Jenna, perfectly timed with a sly grin, sparked an energy that crackled like a live wire. "What if I told you, after tonight, one of us might not walk out?" she whispered, her tone dripping with playful menace. Everyone laughed, but the fleeting chill that danced on their spines hinted at something deeper beneath the surface. In that moment, the group of girls, each adorned in their glamorous dresses and bright lipstick, felt the weight of the unspoken. Among them was Emma, her eyes darting anxiously, a feeling of unshakable dread coiling in her stomach. And why had Jenna's pulse quickened? Was it just the thrill of the night, or was there something lurking that twisted in the shadows of their fun? The shadows danced as the candle flames flickered, casting ghostly shapes along the walls. It was only later, well past midnight, when the laughter dried up and the conversation turned raw. "Have you ever thought about what really lurks in the alleyways of our town?" Jenna's voice dropped, suddenly serious. The chatter faltered. They could feel it in their bones. A sense of stirring mystery was creeping into their celebration. The girls exchanged glances, curious yet hesitant. Jenna's playful sarcasm now hung dangerously over them, like a noose that tightened with every word spoken. "Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Just when it seemed they might shake off Jenna's gloomy mood, a loud crash echoed from the back of the bar. The noise sliced through the air so suddenly that it made their hearts race. Would this be just a tragic end to a carefree night? Or was it the first tremor of something sinister? Emma took a shaky breath, the atmosphere thick with suspense, her instinct screaming that the real night was just about to reveal itself. Something had changed, something was waiting for them beyond the doors. Jenna's eyes sparkled with mischief and maybe a hint of fear. What were they truly stepping into? A heavy silence enveloped the group, their laughter now replaced by anxious whispers. Each glance exchanged among the friends felt like a taut string, pulling tighter with dread. Emma's heart raced as she turned her head towards the sound, struggling to comprehend the source. The bar's atmosphere felt heavy, like a shroud covering their once carefree spirits. What was that? Maria broke the silence, her voice trembling as she straightened her posture, eyes wide. It was clear that the playful mood had evaporated, replaced by a sense of impending doom hanging in the air. "Probably just the cleaning staff," Jenna said, trying to sound confident, but the quiver in her voice betrayed her. She forced a smile, although the fear in her eyes suggested she wanted to believe it just as much as the others did. Emma could hear her own breath mingling with the murmurs of the crowd. Others began to get up from their seats, curiosity overpowering their hesitance. "Should we check it out?" someone suggested. The group exchanged uncertain glances, the collective tension wrapping around them like a fog. "Let us go," Jenna said abruptly, her bravado stammering as she climbed out of her chair. "We can't just sit here." As they approached the back of the bar, the shadows from the flickering candles cast eerie shapes against the walls. Emma felt the fear wrap around her like a constricting snake. With each step closer, the smell of something metallic tinged the air, making her stomach churn. What had taken place back here? They peeked around the corner, their hearts pounding. What awaited them was not the night's carefree revelry. A shattered glass lay scattered across the ground, shards glinting like jagged teeth, leading the way to a dimly lit hallway. At the end, they caught a glimpse of a figure, hunched and cloaked in darkness. "Is someone there?" Jenna called out, her voice shaky yet bold. The figure turned, the glint of eyes reflecting a deep, unsettling void. "Run!" Emma screamed, instinct kicking in before her brain could process the moment. They darted back toward the bar area, adrenaline pumping through their veins, raw terror propelling them forward. They could hear footsteps heavy and insistent following close behind, echoing against the walls of the narrow hallway. Girls screamed, some tripping, scrambling to get back to the safety of the wide-open room where the crowd still murmured, blissfully unaware of the chase that was happening behind them. Emma grabbed Maria's hand, her heart thrumming loudly in her chest. They stumbled into the main room, breathless and wide-eyed, but the atmosphere shifted as if a predator had caught their scent. "Where is everyone?" Maria gasped, scanning the now half-empty bar. Chairs were overturned, drinks spilled, and panic began to spread through the remaining patrons. "What did you see?" A guy shouted from the back, his expression a mix of concern and annoyance. "What is happening? We need to get out. I don't know what that was." Emma's voice cracked, the terror bubbling up her throat. Just then, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness for a heartbeat before coming back on. But in those fleeting seconds, a chill wind swept through the room, carrying with it an unholy laugh that made their bones rattle. Emma turned to look at Jenna, whose expression had morphed from playfulness to horror. The older woman was right, something sinister had woven itself into their night, and they had unwittingly stumbled into its web. "What if one of us doesn't walk out?" Emma's thoughts echoed Jenna's earlier words, chilling her to the bone. Before they could fully comprehend what was happening, the door to the bar swung open, swinging wildly. The room held its breath, and all eyes darted toward the entrance, but no one was there. Emma felt the tightening in her chest again, panic rising like bile. They needed to get out fast. And as she pushed her way toward the door, a thought gnawed at the back of her mind. What if the real danger had never needed to chase them at all? What if it was already in the room with them? Emma felt the walls of the bar closing in, the air thick with dread. Every step she took toward the front door felt like walking through molasses, her body heavy with fear. She knew the others were right behind her, but the sound of their footsteps faded into a distant echo, as if the very room was swallowing them whole. "Emma! Wait!" Jenna's voice sliced through the oppressive atmosphere. But instead of turning back, Emma pressed on, urgency overriding her reasoning. They had to escape. As they neared the entrance, a chaotic mix of human fear twisted around them. People were shouting, some crying. It was a nightmare, with frantic faces illuminated by the dim bar lights. Moments that felt like hours dragged on, and the door still loomed, tauntingly close yet frustratingly out of reach. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the back, causing them all to jump. The blood-curdling sound was followed by the unmistakable clatter of glass shattering against the tiled floor. Emma's heart raced as she imagined the figure they had seen earlier emerging from the darkness, a predatory delight in whatever chaos it stirred within the bar. "Get out of the way!" a man shouted, pushing past Emma and his friends as he barreled toward the exit. Someone screamed again, more shrill this time, and the fear in the room escalated. Emma looked back, and as her gaze searched the shadows, the faint hint of movement sent chills down her spine. "We have to go!" Maria cried, gripping Emma's shirt tightly, pulling her toward the door. A twisted instinct clutched at Emma's gut. She felt a sharp urge to look back once more, drawn inexplicably to the darkened hallway. The others shouted behind her, urging her forward, but her feet felt glued to the ground. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently again. For the brief seconds they blinked out, an image burned into her mind, the silhouette of the cloaked figure, this time closer, lingering just at the edge of light before melting back into the shadows. A cold shiver danced up her spine, a warning whisper that something was very wrong. "Emma, please!" Jenna's voice broke her trance. She felt the pull of her friends dragging her back to safety, but something deeper chained her to the spot, and then it happened. A loud, bone-rattling boom erupted from the hallway, a crashing sound that seemed to shake the very foundation of the bar. The ground trembled beneath them, and Emma stumbled, tears forming in her eyes from the sheer fright. It propelled her instinctively forward. "Go!" Emma screamed, adrenaline surging through her veins. They surged toward the exit, Heartbeats pounding like war drums as they barreled through the door, bursting into the night air, they stood breathlessly on the pavement illuminated by the neon glow of nearby signs, gasping for oxygen, desperate to be away from the chaos inside. But dread settled over them like a fog. This is crazy what just happened. Maria's voice was shaky, but her eyes darted back towards the entrance, as if expecting something to follow them out. Jenna's face reflected anger laced with fear. We should call the police, she insisted, reaching for her phone. But as she did, a scream erupted from the bar, piercing the cool night air like a shard of glass. Emma's blood ran cold. What if that thing is still in there? She whispered, a knot of terror forming in her stomach, but then, the impossible happened. As they turned to run, a chilling laugh, unmistakably human yet dripping with malice, echoed from inside the entrance. It sent shivers down Emma's spine, a cruel reminder that their worst fears were far from over. Before they could react, a shadow shifted at the edge of the doorway. Help us! It's coming! Shouted a familiar voice from within. Emma's eyes widened, recognizing it immediately. No, not him. And just like that, she knew one thing for certain: whatever darkness lurked behind that door had chosen its next victim. Would they find a way to save their friend, or would the night claim them all? The deeper truth was surfacing, and as they stood frozen in fear, the relentless pursuit of danger was far from over. Emma's heart raced as the cold, mocking laughter pierced the night air like a knife. The familiar voice wove through her panic, tugging at her resolve. Jack, she gasped, dread pooling in her stomach. We can't leave him. But even as the words tumbled from her lips, the slippery grip of fear wrapped tighter around her. Emma, we don't have time. Jenna shouted, urgency thick in her tone. But the pleading in Emma's soul screamed differently. What if Jack needed them? Without another thought, she surged forward, breaking away from her friends. The glow from the street lights blinked behind her, fading as her mind focused only on the doorway. Shadows danced within like ghosts waiting to snatch her back into the abyss. Emma, no. Maria called, but Emma had already crossed the threshold into the nightmarish void of the bar. The chaos was much worse inside. Broken glass crunched underfoot as Emma stepped in, her senses heightened, breathing shallow. Shouts escalated into wails, a lost battle of terror rang through the air. Shadows slithered past her, unidentifiable shapes that felt alive, coiling and crawling, weaving through the scattered bodies on the ground. The silhouette of the cloaked figure flickered in and out of existence, taunting her with its proximity, a predator playing with its prey. Jack! She shouted into the darkness, her voice strained as it echoed back at her, swallowed by the panic around her. She strained to see through the dim lighting, every heartbeat an urgent drum calling her further in. With each step, the oppressive atmosphere clung to her skin, a heavy cloak of dread. She felt a chilly presence creeping ever nearer, coaxing an icy breath into her lungs. Then, from behind a toppled table, Jack emerged, his face pale, eyes wide with horror. Relief washed over Emma like a balm, but it quickly faded when she noticed the blood smeared across his hands. Emma! He called, his voice barely above a whisper as he staggered toward her. You shouldn't have come back. Let us go. We have to get out of here. She insisted, reaching for him. But just as her fingers brushed his shoulder, a guttural roar erupted from deep within the shadows, chilling her to the bone. Jenna and Maria's pleas echoed in the back of her mind, an urgent chorus demanding her to flee, yet something ancient and grim pushed her forward. This time, she wasn't simply rescuing her friend. She was stepping into a fight that felt larger than all of them. Emma, the thing, Jack gasped, glancing behind him, his voice trembling. It's not just a monster. It's feeding off their fear. As realization struck, a door slammed shut in the back, plunging them further into darkness. Emma glanced around, searching for an escape, but everywhere she turned, the shadows seemed to thicken, surrounding them like an inescapable web. Jack! We need to get out now. She screamed, her heart pounding in desperation. But a presence loomed between them and freedom. Dread coiled like barbed wire around her chest as she felt a chilling breath on the nape of her neck, confirming what they desperately tried to deny. "I'll draw it away," Jack said, desperation glinting in his eyes despite the fear. "You have to get to the front. I can hold it off." "No." Emma's voice cracked with terror. "We leave together." But before she could argue, Jack spun, gripping a broken bottle tightly. "Go!" he shouted, pushing her back into the path of escape. Emma hesitated, torn between loyalty and survival, when the lights flickered again, revealing the monstrous figure crawling closer, its face twisted and hungry, a harbinger of the worst nightmares. Fear gripped her like a vice, but how long until Jack could hold it back? "Run!" Jack shouted once more, glancing back at the spiraling chaos around him. With trembling hands and a racing heart, Emma turned and bolted toward the exit, her friends' voices urging her on. The darkness was closing in, chasing her like an unyielding shadow, the laughter echoing just behind her, but as she reached the door, an eruption of sound crashed into the night. The horrifying realization hit her. They were not just facing a monster, they were opening Pandora's box, and she had no idea what would come next. Emma burst through the door, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. The cool air slapped her face, but the relief was short-lived. She could still hear the chaos behind her, a symphony of terror that clawed at her mind. "Where's Jack?" Jenna's voice cut through the night, panic lacing her tone. He's holding it off," Emma shouted, breathless. The weight of the bar hung thick in her chest. "We have to go back for him." "No. He told you to run." Maria insisted, grabbing Emma's arm, her face pale but resolute. Emma shook her head, a storm of emotions swirling. Fear for Jack mixed with the urgency of survival. But the pressure to act now was like a weight pinning her down. "We can't just leave him. He's in there fighting that thing." With an urgency she never felt before, she pulled away from her friends, scanning the street for any sign of safety. Shadows lurked in every corner, and the laughter, a twisted melody of despair, drummed into her ears, growing louder, more insistent. "Emma, wait!" Jenna shouted, but fear propelled Emma forward again. She looked back once, catching the wide-eyed worry in her friends' expressions. The laughter morphed into screams. They had to move, but where to? She didn't want to believe it was over for Jack. The fear binding her friends was palpable, but so was her determination. She had to find a way to help. Racing across the street, she took the alley beside the bar, breathing hard. The shadows wrapped tighter around her, and she could feel the malevolent presence, the thing Jack had warned her about, creeping closer. As she moved deeper into the alley, Emma heard a whimper. Squinting into the darkness, she found a figure huddled against the damp wall, someone from the bar, disheveled and trembling. It was a girl, blood smudged on her cheeks. It knows, she stammered, eyes wild. "What did you see? Where's Jack?" Emma asked breathlessly. "The thing, it can smell fear. It grows stronger." The girl's voice turned to a whisper as she raked her eyes around, glancing over Emma's shoulder. You need to leave. It's coming." Emma's resolve hardened, an instinct firing in her veins. She couldn't abandon Jack. Not now. A glimmer of hope sparked. "What if we fight it?" The girl's gaze widened in horror. "You can't. It'll eat you alive." But Emma's mind raced. "No, if it's feeding on fear, then we can't let it have us." "Are you mad?" The girl shrieked, pulling back as if Emma had turned monstrous. "That thing is beyond anything you can fight." But Emma was done fleeing. "I can't let Jack face it alone." "Jack is," the girl started, but Emma cut her off. "Yes, he is scared. Like everyone else in there. We can't show our fear. We need to stand together, or we'll all die in this nightmare." Taking a deep breath, Emma felt the tide of determination swell. She thought of Jack, his broken voice chanting for her, and she knew she couldn't leave him. There was a flicker of hope in the darkness, and she had to grasp it before the shadows swallowed her whole. As she turned back toward the bar, a sudden flicker caught her eye. The shadows were shifting, warping, as if aware of her intentions. An echo of that mocking laughter returned, pulling her back toward the unfolding chaos. "Emma, don't!" The girl's plea fell on deaf ears as Emma staggered into the light of the entrance once more. The moment she stepped inside, all sounds dropped to a chilling hush. Darkness loomed ahead, the monster's breath palpable in the air. Her heart screamed for Jack, every beat urging her to find him, save him, and then she saw him standing tall, tough as nails, with the broken bottle still clenched tight in his hand. But he wasn't alone. The creature was right there, its grotesque face turned toward him, jaws snapping as it reveled in the agony seeping from the terrified crowd. "Jack!" Emma screamed again, fear no longer a burden but a weapon. The creature turned its soulless gaze on her, and for the first time, she felt its eyes burrow into her soul. It understood her fear. And so did she. "What have I done?" Emma whispered to herself, but this time, she was ready to fight back. She took a step forward, the shadows ready to clash. Would fear become their undoing, or would courage transform this despair into power? The moment had come. The air thickened with tension as Emma stepped deeper into the bar. Jack stood motionless, the creature looming ominously before him, a twisted combination of nightmares made flesh. The creature's eyes glinted like black stones, drawing energy from the despair swirling around, its jagged teeth stained with a dark promise. "Stay back!" Jack shouted, his voice strained, but there was a fire blazing in his eyes. He glanced at Emma, his expression shifting from defiance to a mix of hope and dread. Emma felt the physical weight of fear in the room. People crowding near the exits trembled, their eyes darting back to the beast. She could see it now pulsing like an entity itself, thriving on terror, a predator sharpened by the panic surrounding it. "Jack, I'm here!" Emma called out, forcing herself to step closer. The ground beneath her was sticky, the remnants of countless drinks transforming into a personal swamp of dread. "Emma, no! Get out!" He yelled again, desperation creeping into his tone. But she couldn't back down. Not now. The creature's guttural growl vibrated in her bones, echoing an ancient, primal instinct to flee. But Emma had made her choice. She needed a plan, and fast. "We have to work together. It can smell fear, so let us show it we're not afraid." The being shifted, its head tilting as it processed her words. It seemed to revel in the chaos, swirling the air with its breath, smelling them, tasting their fear like a fine wine. "Together," Jack murmured, rallying at her spirit. "But what do we do?" A scream erupted from the crowd, a young woman unable to look away from the creature's hideous grin. "Get out!" she wailed, desperation betraying her courage, and it sent a jolt through Emma's gut. "Look for something we can use." Emma scanned the bar, her eyes racing over the clutter. Broken glass, chairs overturned, anything that might give them the edge. A glimpse of steel caught her eye, an old barstool tipped over against the wall. "Jack, follow me." She darted towards it, adrenaline thrumming through her veins, the world shrinking into focus. She could feel the creature's gaze boring into her back, but she refused to flinch. Jack was right behind her, his movements agile and determined. As they reached the stool, the growl deepened, a throaty promise of devastation lurking in every syllable. "Keep it distracted." Emma shouted over her shoulder, grabbing the stool and lifting it above her head, ready for an assault. "Hey, ugly!" Jack hollered, taunting the creature. His courageous grin faltered only slightly, eyes alight with defiance. "You want some of this?" The creature lunged, jaw snapping dangerously close to Jack's face. He sidestepped just in time, and Emma swung the stool down, narrowly missing its head. The wooden legs missed the creature, but the clattering noise roused more panic. Bystanders began to scream, a synchronized chorus of despair blending into the monster's delight. The experience was overwhelming, electricity running through Emma's veins, her throat thick as despair threatened to choke her. "Focus!" she yelled, and right then, something shifted in her core. They couldn't give in. Jack relied on her. "Okay, let us try this." Emma threw caution to the wind and kicked the broken bottle towards the beast. It shattered, the sound piercing the air, drawing the creature's attention. "Look! It's afraid of noise." Jack caught on quickly. "Everyone! Form a line. Make noise. Fight back with everything." The crowd stirred, a wave of fright morphing into a collective roar. Shouting erupted, buzzing around Emma and Jack like a storm. Suddenly, the creature recoiled, filtering its energy away from Emma's rage-fueled resolve. For the first time, terror lifted off Emma's shoulders just a little. But the shadows still writhed at the edges, mocking them, pulling her apart at the seams. "Is this really working?" she gasped, scanning Jack's face etched with determination. "Maybe," he said, voice thick with uncertainty. "But we have to be quick or else." The creature snarled, eyes narrowing in fury. It was ready to retaliate, and they couldn't allow the surge of courage to falter. They had to strike while the creature was on the defensive. "What's the next move?" Jack asked, urgency seeping through his tone, but in that moment, Emma glanced around, and dread gripped her heart. Each face watching them was distorted with fear. The shadows loomed again, heavy with despair. "What if we push it outside?" she whispered, suddenly gripped with the uncertainty of their plan. Before Jack could respond, the beast lunged again, snapping at them, reinforcing the seriousness of their plight. "Now!" Emma urged, heart racing. Hope existed in their unity. But could they hold on to that hope long enough to save themselves and everyone else before the darkness crashed in? As they started to weave their way toward the exit, an ominous laugh echoed around the bar, a sound so sinister it froze them in place. Too late, it seemed to whisper, as the shadows thickened once more. Emma's heart raced as the laughter reverberated through her, a chilling caress that crawled along her skin. She glanced at Jack, his eyes wide with horror. "What was that?" he breathed, his voice low, almost lost behind the cacophony of screams. The creature seemed to sense the momentary drop in courage, its twisted grin spreading wider as it basked in the fear of the crowd. "Focus!" Emma shouted again, pushing through the disorienting haze of panic. "We can't lose this momentum. Keep moving." With every ounce of willpower, she shoved the bar stool forward, creating a barrier between them and the beast. Jack followed her lead, shouting to the crowd, his voice firm, laced with desperation. "Don't let it win. Move." As they shuffled closer to the exit, the floor felt like a living thing, its sticky residue clinging to their shoes, threatening to pull them down into a chasm of despair. Shadows flickered at the edges of the room as if the very darkness were alive, clawing at their heels. Suddenly, a figure in the back stumbled, a man losing his grip in the chaos, his feet slipping on the slick floor. Emma saw him fall, his eyes wide with terror as the creature shifted its gaze fixating on the vulnerable target. "No!" Emma screamed, instinctively lunging back. She felt the air whoosh past her like a tidal wave. Without a second thought, she reached for the nearest object, a shattered piece of glass, jagged but familiar, holding it tightly between her fingers. "Jack!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the panic as she turned to him. He caught her gaze, and for a fleeting moment, their bond pulsed with a fierce determination. "Go!" he yelled, eyes locked on the creature, ready to throw himself into danger. "Wait, we have to help him," she insisted, knowing the truth, every life mattered. Yet as she glanced back at the man struggling, the creature had already lunged. Time slowed as she watched in horror, the monstrous jaws snapping shut around the man's arm, dragging him backward, a cruel and merciless feast. "No!" Emma felt bile rise in her throat. "We can't let it take him." Fueled by righteous fury, Jack sprinted toward the beast, ready to draw its attention. Emma followed, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire, a primal scream on the tip of her tongue. "Over here, you rotten beast!" Jack taunted, flailing wildly as he grabbed another stool and swung with all his might. Emma joined him, hollering, "We'll bring this monster down together." The creature reeled back, surprised by their sudden united force. It bared its jagged teeth, a snarl bubbling within its throat, and Emma felt the first tendrils of hope entwining with her defiance, but the shadows around them thickened, growing more substantial, coiling like smoke. The faces of the crowd shifted, warped in fear as if the darkness were drawing strength from them, feeding off their despair. Jack turned to Emma, desperation etched across his face. "We need a distraction. Something loud." Through the chaos, Emma spotted a small shelf behind the bar, stocked with more liquor bottles than she could count. "The bottles!" she yelled, eyes igniting with a plan. "Let us shatter them." With a nod, they bolted toward the shelf, their movement a blur of urgency and desperation. Just as Emma grabbed a handful of glass bottles, the creature lunged again, its claws scratching the air like knives. "Now!" Jack yelled, and together, they hurled the bottles against the floor, the shattering echoes ricocheting against the walls. The creature recoiled, snarling, confused by the sudden barrage. Emma felt the weight of the room shift. People around her began to rise, spurred by their energy, lifting their voices in a collective roar of defiance. But just as spirits lifted, a grating laugh pierced through, darker and more menacing than before. "Do you think your noise can save you?" It reverberated like a hiss, carrying an eerie weight that made their hearts skip. Emma's pulse quickened again. That voice familiar and chilling. But where had she heard it before? The shadows danced, flickering closer, dragging the battered remnants of hope into a deeper abyss. Emma's stomach twisted, now unsure if they were truly escaping or merely falling into another trap. "Hold on!" she shouted, clenching the last few fragments of courage. "We have to get to the door." In the haze of chaos, Jack turned to her, the fear now palpable in his eyes. "Emma, what if it's waiting for us outside?" A sharp gasp escaped her lips. "We have no choice. It's now or never." As they raced toward the exit, the darkness closed in behind them, a tangle of lives and shadows. They had to escape, but an even graver threat loomed closer, and they could feel the sinister presence watching, waiting. Emma forced herself to look back, her heart pounding. What if the creature had a plan? What was waiting for them just beyond the door? The moment hung heavy, pregnant with unanswered questions, leaving them both trembling at the threshold of uncertainty. The door loomed ahead, but it felt like a barrier to freedom rather than an exit. Emma could sense the darkness behind them, alive and hungry. Every step felt heavy, dragging her down as the whispers of the crowd merged into a dreadful symphony of despair. "We have to run, now!" Jack barked, eyes locked on the door. Determination surged through him, igniting a spark of courage in Emma. She grabbed his hand, their fingers intertwining tightly, a lifeline in the chaos. With a final push, they barreled through the door, the wooden frame splintering under the stress of their desperate escape. Emma stumbled outside into the cool night air but immediately froze. The street was eerily quiet, the usual clamor of the city faded into an unnatural stillness. Streetlights flickered, casting shadows that seemed to stretch and bend, mocking their flight. What just happened? Emma gasped, chest heaving. She looked frantically around, half expecting the creature to materialize from the darkness. Jack's grip tightened on her hand. "I don't know, but we can't stop. It could still follow us." The moment felt surreal. There were no sirens, no screams. Just the haunting silence of the night. They sprinted down the street, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the emptiness, a pulse of hope against the encroaching dread. "Where do we go?" Emma panted, her mind racing. The creature could lurk in any shadow, waiting patiently to strike. "Let us head to Miller's Diner," Jack said. "It's always busy this time of night." As they dashed down the familiar streets, Emma felt a flicker of hope. The neon lights of the diner twinkled in the distance, a beacon piercing through the night. But just as they rounded the corner, a chilling blast of cold air swept past her, a gust infused with rancid smells and a faint whisper of laughter echoing from behind. "Did you hear that?" Emma stopped abruptly. Her heart pounded in her chest, the weight of instinct warning her. "Hurry!" Jack shouted, urging her forward. They reached the diner in record time, skidding to a halt. The door swung open and they spilled inside, gasping for breath. The diner was crowded, customers mumbling over coffee mugs, oblivious to the chaos outside. Emma glanced back at the door, half expecting to see the creature crashing through. But when she turned away, something caught her eye. A figure at the far booth sat alone, its face obscured by a shadowy hood. The air seemed to shift, smothering her with a familiar sense of dread. "That's him," Emma whispered, her voice trembling as recognition clawed at her insides. "That's the voice from before." Jack's eyes darted to the booth. "What do we do?" I don't know," she stammered, every instinct urging her to run. But the figure's head tilted slowly toward them, revealing a face almost too familiar. His lips curled into a malicious smile, sinister and knowing, like he had been waiting for them, anticipating their every move. "Emma Jack," he drawled, voice dripping with mockery. "You thought you could escape so easily?" Her breath caught in her throat. How did he know their names? The crowd around them seemed to fade, lost in a world of its own, while the figure continued to loom larger, engulfing them in his gaze. "What do you want?" Jack's body tensed beside her, ready for a fight that felt imminent. "To show you the truth," the figure hissed, his voice a twisted melody. "You're not safe anywhere." Panic spiked in Emma. What truth? But the diner lights flickered violently, shadows dancing across the walls, and the laughter that had haunted them swelled once more, drowning out her voice. Emma felt her stomach drop as her heart raced. The shape of the creature seemed to ripple through the crowd, dark and hungry, distorting everything it touched. A sick realization washed over her. Maybe they weren't safe after all. Just as Jack turned, ready to confront the figure, the door slammed shut behind them, locking them in, and the laughter crescendoed, echoing from every corner, sealing their fate in a dreadful embrace. "Emma," Jack whispered, pulling her close as the lights went out. A suffocating dark washed over the diner. "What's happening?" she gasped, panic clawing at her. But all she heard was the cruel laughter, echoing in her mind, hinting at something far worse. As the shadows wrapped around them, she felt the last flicker of hope extinguish, leaving them clinging to each other, ready to face the unknown. In the enveloping darkness, Emma's voice broke through the silence. "Jack, what if we never escape?" A chill swept through the air as she tried to steady her breathing, knowing deep down that this was just the beginning. What awaited them in this relentless night of shadows was a reality, one that could crush everything they believed in. But then, a new sound pierced the chaos, a distant roar of sirens, cutting through the silence, promising either salvation or further doom. Emma clutched Jack's arm tightly. "We have to find a way out of here before it's too late." What else lay hidden in the night that would challenge everything they thought they knew? The darkness swallowed them, a heavy shroud that muffled every sound but the haunting laughter. Emma's heart raced, pounding through her chest like a desperate drumbeat, a stark reminder of their perilous situation. "Jack," she whispered, the name barely escaping her lips above the growing unrest in the diner. "What do we do?" Before he could respond, the laughter intensified, echoing from every corner, wrapping around them like a snake ready to strike. Jack's jaw clenched, his eyes darting around the dimly lit space, searching for any sign of escape. The figure in the booth remained unmoved, a dark sentinel watching as chaos unfolded. His eyes sparkled with a wicked delight, as if gathering energy from their growing fear. "You see, dear Emma and Jack, the truth is never easy to digest," he crooned, his voice slithering through the air. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, barely illuminating the wide eyes of the other diners. Faces full of confusion and fear turned towards the shadows, questions hanging on their lips. The diner's owner, old Mr. Miller, stood frozen behind the counter, wide-eyed as he clutched a coffee pot, its contents sloshing over the rim in his trembling hands. "Nobody even notices," Jack muttered, the reality slicing through his thoughts like a cold knife. "What's wrong with them?" "Maybe they're all part of it," Emma said, dread pooling in her stomach. The laughter, though surrounding them, felt distant, as if they were on the edge of a different realm. "They can't see what's happening." As if responding to her thoughts, the figure at the booth leaned forward, his smile growing wider. "They're merely spectators, watching the tragic play of your lives unfold," he said, a sinister glee threading through his tone. "And you, my dear children, are the stars of the show." Jack squeezed Emma's hand tighter, eyes hardening. "Not for much longer." With a renewed sense of determination, he pulled her toward the kitchen door at the back of the diner. But as they approached, a surge of darkness seeped into the room, twisting the shadows into grotesque shapes that splintered and shifted menacingly. The laughter grew louder, melding into a nightmarish chorus, drowning out their thoughts. "No!" Emma screamed, but the words trapped in her throat barely made it past trembling lips. They were not alone in this twisted place. Something malevolent lurked just beneath the surface. "What have you brought with you?" The figure taunted, his voice hauntingly melodic. "Only darkness can reveal the truth." Emma and Jack were close to the kitchen now, when the door suddenly swung open with a horrific creak, the light from within spilling out into the diner's oppressive gloom. It felt like a portal to another reality, contrasting sharply against the thick blanket of fear. "Get inside," Jack urged, pulling her through the threshold just as the shadows clawed at their backs, hungry for what they possessed. The kitchen was chaotic, filled with pots and pans, the smell of grease thick in the air. They moved quickly, scanning for an exit, but the back door was bolted. Panic surged again, rising in Emma's throat. "Over here!" Jack shouted, diving toward a window, a last hope for freedom. He yanked it open with a fierce tug as the sounds of the diner faded into a discordant melody. "Come on!" Just as Emma lunged to join him, the laughter erupted once more, now part of the darkness that crept into the kitchen. It was suffocating, wrapping around her limbs, pulling her back just as Jack's fingers grazed hers. "Emma! Don't let go!" he pleaded, his expression frantic, and then, for a moment, time felt suspended. The light from the window blinked in and out, and all she could hear was the sinister voice from the booth, echoing in the void. "The truth has a funny way of catching up." With a surge of adrenaline, Emma forced against the invisible grip of shadows. In that split second, she saw it, a fleeting glimpse of freedom, the street beyond beckoning. With one powerful movement, she dove through the opening, her body propelled by sheer will. "Hold on!" Todd's voice cut through the chaos as she landed hard, rolling onto the cold pavement outside, but as she scrambled to her feet, a sickening realization struck: the diner door slammed shut behind them. The laughter faded, but the shadows seemed to gather at the edges, waiting. "Jack! Where are you?" Emma shouted, fear racing like wildfire in her veins. As she turned, she felt a cold wave wash over her. The figure from the booth stood just outside the diner's door now, looming tall and sinister, his malicious smile never wavering. "Welcome back to the outside, Emma. I hope you enjoyed the show." Emma's heart sank as the darkness shimmered around him, ready to pounce, and she realized that the night's horrors had just begun. Was there truly a way out? With uncertainty clawing at her mind, she ran. What's the truth he promised? And at what cost would they learn it? Emma sprinted down the dimly lit street, the night wrapping around her like a heavy cloak of dread. She could still hear the faint echoes of laughter trailing behind her, a sinister reminder of the darkness they had narrowly escaped, or so she thought. Around her, shadows twisted and writhed, threatening to swallow her whole. The stench of fear and desperation clung to the air, as palpable as the cool breeze that sent chills down her spine. "Jack!" she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat as she spun around. There was no sign of him. The night swallowed everything, the silence wrapping around her like a noose. "Get to the cars!" She heard a distant yell, but the panic churning inside her left little room for hope. The distant sound of sirens rippled through the air, an echo of safety, but how could she trust it? What if the creature had already seeped into every corner, waiting patiently to strike again like a predator concealing itself in the tall grass? For a split second, Emma faltered, her heart clenching in fear. What if she'd lost Jack forever? An image flashed through her mind, his wide eyes, filled with determination as he fought against the darkness. I can't let that be the last memory of him, she whispered to herself, eyes narrowing with renewed resolve. Just then, movement caught her eye, a flicker in the shadows nearby. Emma's breath hitched as she spun around, her heart racing as she prepared for anything. But it was only Maria, her face pale, filled with worry. Emma! Thank God! Maria's voice was strained, but relief flooded her features as she hurried toward her, breathless. I thought I lost you. Where's Jack? Emma searched Maria's eyes, fear creeping back. She couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to unfold. He's back there, but Maria's voice wavered as she took a step back, panic bubbling under her words. Emma, it followed us. The darkness, it has him. What do you mean? Emma's voice trembled, the implication wrapping around her like icy fingers. But Maria only shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. We can't go back. Whatever that thing is, it's too strong. You don't understand how it feeds on fear. It wanted us all along, and now it has Jack. No. Emma felt her resolve shatter like glass as the realization crashed in. We can't leave him. Before Maria could stop her, Emma was already turning back to the diner, legs pumping against the pavement. She could hear the blood rushing in her ears, the familiar laughter beckoning her onward, urging her deeper into the impending chaos. Emma, wait. Please. Maria's frantic pleas fell on deaf ears as the adrenaline surged through Emma's veins, amplifying her determination. She wasn't going to abandon Jack, not after everything they had been through. He needed her. As Emma burst through the doors of the diner, the lights flickered ominously again, plunging her into unsettling darkness. Screams erupted from within, but this time she vividly recalled the familiar faces of those trapped inside. She could feel the weight of their fear, compressed like a vice against her chest. Jack! She shouted, her voice ringing out, desperate and raw. I'm coming. Emma fought through the bar, her heart a raging tempest, focusing on the shadows swirling around the figure. The creature seemed to pale slightly in surprise at her sudden return, its laugh tinged with annoyance, yet the darkness coiled tighter around it as if it drew strength from her determination. Not so brave now, are we? It hissed, taunting her with a serpent-like grin. Shut up. She roared, channeling all of her fear into fury. Chunks of broken glass scattered on the floor, glinting under the dim light. Were that the remnants of their earlier fight, or the very essence of their vulnerability? In a moment of clarity, Emma realized she had to fight not just for Jack, but for every lost soul in this nightmare. Listen to me. She shouted, standing tall against the creeping shadows. You're nothing but a deception. You feed on fear, and I refuse to let you win. The creature recoiled slightly, its sinister expression morphing into irritation, but Emma pressed on, wielding her resolve like a weapon. The air felt electric, and as clarity washed over her, she felt the whispers of her friends empowering her in the thick of the chaos. What if we turn the tide? She thought desperately, glancing back at Jack, who appeared battered but still standing. If she could show him they weren't afraid, then maybe, just maybe, they could rally everyone united against the darkness. Jack! She called, finally making eye contact with him through the chatter of fear and despair. You have to believe. We can't let it control us anymore. Just then, the laughter met a sudden crescendo, echoing through the bar, drowning out every other sound, and that's when she realized the others were beginning to rally around them. Shouts of determination began to cut through the fear, the crowd responding to her call. Together. We're stronger together. Emma shouted, her heart pounding with hope. We fight as one. As the crowd surged to her side, a wave of energy surged through the room, snapping the grip of fear that had held them hostage. Dark shadows twisted but lost their bite against this newfound resolve. And then, the impossible happened. With each cry of defiance, the creature began to waver. The air pulsed with a force of unity, turning the tides of power back to Emma and her friends. Now! She cried, feeling the adrenaline rush their throat as they surged toward the figure. With a final roar, Jack thrust the broken bottle forward, aiming in unison with Emma and the others at the heart of the creature. Shadows clashed against light, screams tearing through the air and puncturing the haunted laughter. Emma felt the tension snap like a taut string as the darkness tore apart, unraveling before their fierce determination. The creature screamed, its twisted body twisting through the air before collapsing into the floor, a torrent of darkness that swirled and decayed like a nightmare finally escaping from beneath the surface. As the room brightened, the sinister trappings of the bar seemed to melt away, fading into oblivion. And for the first time, genuine laughter swelled within them, a sound of hope breaking free, drowning out the lingering shadows that had threatened to consume them all. Jack collapsed to the ground, weary but alive. Slowly, the crowd began to emerge from their stupor, eyes wide with disbelief that they had finally escaped the depths of hell. Emma rushed to Jack, pulling him into a fierce embrace, the adrenaline finally fading away, leaving only relief in its wake. "We did it!" she uttered, breathless and joyful. But in that moment of silence, Emma couldn't help but glance back toward the entrance. Would the darkness really be gone for good? Or was it merely waiting for another chance to return? But she didn't have to worry about that now. Here, among her friends, she could finally allow herself to breathe, to let the weight of the world slip away. "We're free," she whispered, and though panic lingered at the edges of her heart, it was hope that surged forth, and as they stepped outside together, bathed in the soft glow of dawn creeping over the horizon, Emma knew they had faced the darkness and prevailed. They had survived. This isn't the end of their story, this was just the beginning. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Now, here's where I need your help. You need to subscribe now to this channel. Don't miss out on exclusive stories like this. Smash that like button, and let us feed the algorithm so more people can share this journey with us, and flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You know they will thank you later.